Dr. Richard John Robert, the British biochemist and Nobel Laureate from British. On behalf of KIT University, I welcome Dr. Richard John Robert to this inaugural session and express my gratitude to him for his kind presence and being agreed to deliver his address in this inaugural session. Thank you, sir, for joining us in this inaugural session and being agreed to inaugurate this program. Our honorable founder of KIT and KISS, Professor Dr. Achyutananda Samant, our honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Hrusikesh Mohanty, respected Program Chair, Professor B.B. Das from NIT Surathkal, Professor Jayant Parida, Director of School of Commerce and Economics, Professor Gyanaranjan Mohanty, Registrar of KIT University, all the respected panelists, delegates, and the participants present here to deliver an international conference on sustainability and equity. Today in KIT University, we are discussing about sustainability and equity. It's because before 1 year, myself and our honorable founder, we are discussing on the issue of leadership and sustainability. And there we discussed that we all are working on sustainability and particularly on the issue of human development since last so many years. It's around 25 years today we have crossed, and let's develop one forum where the different aspect of sustainability and equity can be discussed. So from that discussion, the concept of institutionalizing one international conference on sustainability and equity came into existence. KIT and KISS together are working on sustainability and equity since its inception. Not only it has established a very big center for human development in the name of KIIT, where every effort is being put to provide the quality education to the youth of the globe. And today KIIT is very happy that it in-houses the students from 55 countries from around the globe. With that, lots of social initiatives are being taken by KIT University, starting from working for the tribal community, establishing the largest tribal school of the globe for the 30,000 students, those who live together, those who study together, those who work together in one organization. Third, it helps the communities to emerge as the smart communities. It provides facilities in different remote areas to come up as the smart villages, the smart panchayats. So when we talk about the sustainability and equity, KIT works on all-round development. It's work on human development, it works on social development, it works on economic development, and also it works on environmental development. The four aspects of sustainability, whatever we are discussing today, it works on all the four dimensions. Our honorable founder has a vision to provide the equity to the youth of this country or youth of this globe, to all the public goods and to all the facilities of the world. So today, we all are discussing about the sustainability and equity in this campus with that perspective. Today, we are very happy that with us, the Nobel Laureate from British, Dr. Richard John Robert has become agreed to inaugurate this program, who has got the Nobel Prize in 1993, and his discovery, because of his discovery of split genes. And today he is here to talk about the sustainability and equity. And I hope that his deliberation will educate each one of us that how his findings is helping this globe to evolve the processes, to evolve the system towards sustainability and equity. In the first session at 10:30, I found the researchers, the panelists, the delegates, those who delivered on different aspects of sustainability and equity, it was in the diverse field. Not only they talked about the sustainability and equity with the environmental perspective, even the lots of discussions were there with respect to the gender, with respect to the manufacturing, with respect to the production, with respect to the communication, the media, in overall dimension, the discussions were there. For this year, we had taken the topic as the digital society on sustainability and equity. It's because after outbreak of pandemic, we all realized that because of the digitization in every walk of life, in every sphere of the world, the effect of the pandemic, the people could not realize in this globe what would have been the effect without the presence of the digitization in this globe itself. Digitization has facilitated a lot to have a better life during this pandemic time than it was expected. We always say that all innovation is our life in this globe. Perhaps during this crisis time, we all have realized that digitization has helped us to live a better life during this pandemic time. And while we talk about the digital society, today we all realize that now the whole society, the whole globe is driven by the technology and particularly the digitization. And when we talk about the sustainability and equity, we cannot leave the digitization, and digitization should be the part and parcel of discussion in its first edition. As such, we can connect to the people and connect to the knowledge base more effectively and more efficiently. So I would like to thank our honorable chief guest, Professor Dr. Richard John Robert, and also our honorable founder, those who are present here, the global leaders, those who are present here to educate us, to enrich our own experiences, enrich our knowledge towards the sustainability and equity. I thank our honorable chief guest for being present here. And I also thank our honorable founder for being agreeing to be present here. And now I would request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to deliver his address. And I hope that from their guidance, from their advices, from their enlightenment, all the delegates present here will learn a lot. Thank you, sir, for being present here. Thanks to Dr. Richard John Roberts for being present. Once again, thank you. I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to deliver his address. Thank you.
Yeah. Namaskar to all of you, and good evening, and welcome to this something very special conference on sustainability. I am thankful today Good evening to all of you. And we have with us the honorable guest today, Dr. Richardson Roberts, and Professor Das from NIT Suratkar. So it's a privilege for me to greet you on this occasion, and also all the participants, those who are connected online. And here we have our honorable founder, Professor Achyutananda Samanta, and you just listened to our Pro Vice Chancellor, Madam Professor Sasmita Samanta, and the Director of the School Economics and Commerce, Professor Parida, and our Registrar, Professor J.R. Mohanty, and all the colleagues sitting over here. This is my privilege to talk at the inauguration of this conference. And Madam Pro VC has already he narrated, the behind story of this conference. And we all know that the sustainability is such a prime issue, and all everybody is concerned about the sustainability. What is that sustainability is about? What is to sustain? So we are all concerned that the kind of the development is happening around, and that consumes a lot of resources, including the natural resources. And this development has a cost to pay, and this cost, the cost, particularly the loss of natural resources, is the worries which has got impact on the environment. And the and also the development is so much lopsided, is that the what supposed to happen, the like eradication of the poverty, is not happening. So if the bottom of the pyramid is not strong, then there is a chance of toppling down. So this is why we are talking about the sustainability, that the things that are happening should continue to happen uninterrupted, and also it should withstand the changes, known and unknown changes, the humanity comes comes through, like today the kind of the pandemic, this whole world is challenged, the humanity is challenged. So in this kind of a situation, what we need to do, so that there will be a zero poverty, like zero hunger, and there is equal distribution, and there will not be a discrimination, the right to life, and many such things what humanity looks forward for, a better life, the better society. That is what the thinkers of today were worried about. And the United Nations has taken up the sustainability as an agenda. They find out that what are the issues we need to see to make a sustainable society, sustainable world. So the international forum is very actively is engaged in not only formulating the principles, the aim of the sustainability, but also it looks at the tracking, that how this sustainability is happening around the different parts of the country, different parts of the world. So this is what the taking that agenda of this sustainability, the United Nations, what aims that in between 2020 to 2030, see that sustainability reaches its goal. Towards that goal, what we should do, that the 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 sustainability, the goals of the 17 goals of the sustainability, what it has been earmarked, can be obtained. So this is what the general the sense, or the concern, and the objective of everybody now today, to see that the what the sustainability happens. And particularly now, in in the at the advent of internet technology, the world has been, you know the kind of a digital services world has uh, it is owned it, and everybody is now agree to that, that facilitates life, digital services. And more that in the pandemic time, COVID-19 has accelerated this the digital connections, digital services. So the society is much more rapidly going towards, towards a digital society. So people are connected over the internet. So the relationship of the humankind is to redefine in this digital society. the governance, policies, education, health, everything is to be now redefined, that how in this digital society all this can happen, and all this can happen effectively, so that what the aim is, that that nobody, the last man on the line on the society, will not what the our Professor Hasmita Samant, our Pro VC madam, was telling, that having this success, having this done, I think this is the time to make it a formal, or formal platform, so that every year the people from around the world can exchange the ideas, and can propose something, so that we learn, and also same time those who participate also, they learn about the, the real practice, the of of implementing this sustainable policy, and the plans, so that the goal is achievable within the time, the scheduled time of 2030. Though of course it is not the hard time, but it is, the world looks at in 10 years, this can be at least a, a kind of a appreciable amount of the growth in this subject. This concept should be there. So in that context, this conference is international conference, has got a lot of importance. It has a lot of bearings, so that it provides a platform, a quality platform, and it is much more. We are lucky that there is the persons of eminence, like Nobel laureate Dr. Richard John Roberts is addressing to this, the first the meetings, first conference, and his wisdom will guide us. At the same time, it is also a privilege, it is also a love, that our honorable founder is also addressing this conference, and he will give the very practical tidbits, that how he has been doing it since 25 years. So I welcome again all of you to this conference, and I wish that you do, on attending this, set up your research goals, and also the set up a implementation project proposals, so that these noble thoughts, which now the world humanity is looking forward, is possible to achieve in scheduled time. Thank you very much.
Now I take the honors to invite our Honorable Dr. Richard John Roberts, British biochemist and Nobel laureate, to deliver his address. I think that International Conference on Sustainability and Equity team is very much fortunate that first edition of this international conference is being inaugurated by Honorable Dr. Richard John Roberts. I think the whole team, the whole community, those who are involved in this conference, it will be a memorable occasion for all of us to learn from his wisdom and experience. Sir, please.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me okay, even though you're rather a long way away. What I wanted to do first was to talk a little bit about COVID-19, because it is very difficult to do almost anything these days without having that in the back of your mind. And I think COVID-19 and the current pandemic actually has brought both problems, but also some opportunities. I think one of the things that has happened is it really has been a tremendous demonstration to politicians and the public of the importance of science. Without science, we would not be in the current position where we are on the brink of having a vaccine available. We would not have been able to test as rapidly as we otherwise might. And as always, science can play a huge role provided it is used properly. And I think we have plenty of examples of countries that have used science properly in developing policy about COVID-19. I would mention in particular countries like New Zealand, Taiwan, countries like South Korea, Japan did okay. So there have been a number of countries that have done rather well, but there have been some that have done very poorly. And I would take the country I live in, the USA, as a prime example of that, where the politicians have just ignored science. And that, in my view, is not a very good thing. Another lesson that I think we've learned from COVID-19 is that we live in a world dominated by nature. We always like to think that we can control everything around us. We think that technology can help. But in fact, just one small event, like a virus moving from an animal into the human population, can wreak havoc. And I think COVID-19 is a very good example of that. Some countries dealt with it well. Some countries were prepared for this kind of thing, but many were not. It also raised an opportunity, not just for testing and bringing new tests to bear, but also an opportunity to show how a new route to vaccines can be successful. I think if we look at the two vaccines that are currently poised for approval by the US FDA, the one from Pfizer and the one from Moderna, they are completely new kinds of vaccines that have been tested before, but have never, ever been approved for public use. They look to be incredibly effective. We don't know how long they will last for. We don't know whether this will be something that will have to be renewed on a regular basis, annual, biannual, or if it will provide lifetime protection. That we don't know yet, but we will soon find out. But the fact that they've been so effective and have worked so quickly and have been brought to the market so quickly, I think augurs very well for other vaccines that might be made by the same route that could have a huge implication. I'm sure you know the flu vaccine is not particularly easy to make. Many other vaccines require long routes to get them into production. But this new messenger RNA technology looks to be very exciting. I think as a scientist, one has to look at this and think, well, here is something totally new, can speed the production of vaccines. And if they do turn out to be as successful as we think, that will be terrific. Of course, that always raises a question of equity. And how are we going to assure and make sure that these vaccines are distributed equitably? I think it is incredibly important that these do not just become vaccines available in the developed world, but they have to be made available in the developing world. How we are going to do that is still unknown, but I do take it as a very good sign that many governments have agreed already to put up the money to pay for these vaccines. And I think if there is good worldwide cooperation, and if the technology for making them can be distributed widely, then this could be a real boon for the whole world. But it is important, very important in my view, that we make sure that these vaccines are available everywhere, not just in the developed world. Now, I want to talk a little bit about sustainability, and I want to do it within the context of food. One of the things that I think everybody is aware of these days is that populations are rising at quite a dramatic pace. If you look in Africa, pretty soon the continent of Africa is going to be the most populated continent on the world. But how are they going to feed this population? And I'm sure we're all aware that when populations get hungry, they often do things that one would prefer they didn't. In the case of food, if it is scarce in Africa, but abundant in Europe, I think we can expect to see a lot of migration. That would not be good. That is not something that is easily sustainable. In the developed world, food is not a problem. In the developed world, if anything, we have far too much food as judged by the obesity rates, which are going up and up and up. But in Africa, in many parts of India, many other parts of Asia, food is limiting. There is not enough. Why is there so much in the developed world? Well, it's mainly because the big agricultural companies that provide the food, that grow on these massive farms in Europe, in the US and elsewhere, Brazil and so on, that they have figured out how to get extremely good yields of food of crops rather, from the fields that they farm. They've been using traditional breeding for many, many years now to improve crops, often to a point where it's difficult to see how they can do much better. But this is not true in the developing world. In the developing world, people are still planting crops, are still using methods that we would look upon as old-fashioned. They were not bred, the crops, in a way that we have done so in the developed world. And why? Because the agricultural companies can make money in the developed world. They cannot make money in the developing world, or perhaps not as much as they would like. They see the developed world as their market. So in light of this, what can one do? Well, I think until about 30 years ago, one didn't have a lot of choice. The way in which we improved crops so that they would be easier to grow, so that the yield would be good, were all improved using what we call traditional breeding methods. Basically, you take two crops that can naturally cross one, make hybrid offspring in much the way that we make babies. These plants could be bred and bred and bred to introduce the traits that were desirable. This is a very slow process. It's also a very expensive process. And that is why big agriculture spent a lot of money in order to do this, because they saw there were going to be profits. For them, the expense of this slow breeding program was really well worthwhile. However, in the developing world, that didn't work. There was not the money available to do this. But 30 years ago, everything changed. 30 years ago, two scientists in Belgium, Mark van Montague and Jeff Schell, discovered that there was actually a way of introducing new genes into plants that didn't involve traditional methods. It's the so-called GMO method, although I find the term GMO to be a little disingenuous in that almost everything has been genetically modified. It is just the method of doing it that is different. In the GMO method, Mark van Montague and Jeff Schell discovered that there was a natural process that took place by which bacterial genes, good genes from bacteria, could be moved into plants. They realized that the natural process could be used to introduce not the genes that the bacteria wanted, but rather the genes that we wanted to put into plants. In this way, they developed the GMO method, which has many, many advantages over traditional breeding. It's fast, whereas traditional breeding is slow. It's relatively inexpensive, whereas traditional breeding is quite expensive. But most importantly, it can be done by scientists in the laboratory very easily. Scientists around the world can do this, can use this method to improve the crops that are native to their country. You don't need big agriculture in order to improve these crops. So this all sounds wonderful. Because the GMO method is good, is cheap, and can be implemented in many different places, one would have to ask why it has not been spread around the world. Why are scientists in the developing world not pushing this? Now, to get an answer to that question, we have to go to Europe. We have to realize that when the GMO methods were first being used by a company called Monsanto in the USA, they're now part of Bayer, that what they did was to introduce GM crops or a GM crop into Europe, and the Europeans didn't like it. And they didn't like it for many reasons, but primarily because they were afraid that the US agricultural business would take over Europe's food supply. They didn't want this. In fact, they'd fought for many years to find ways to stop the US agribusiness from introducing and taking over the food supply in Europe. And they saw the introduction of GMO crops as a handle to get at Monsanto. And so they started to think and started to claim that GM crops might be dangerous. Not that they were dangerous, but that they might be dangerous. And in much the way that Hollywood has done very well in scaring people by making movies like Frankenstein and Dracula, so the anti-GMO movement got started by scaring everybody. And in typical political fashion, they said, well, if you support us, then we will make you safe. We will save you from all of these dangers. Unfortunately, this campaign worked very well. And it worked well because, for one thing, Europe didn't actually need GM crops. There's no shortage of food in Europe. In fact, it is very hard to find a skinny European. Certainly, it is hard to find a malnourished European. They do very well for food. And so they didn't need GM crops. And so when the anti-GMO movement got started, they were talking to an audience that didn't really care all that much. However, the result has been really disastrous. It's been disastrous because you cannot claim that GMOs are dangerous in Europe, but they're okay for everybody else. They're okay in Africa, they're okay in India. And one of the things that they did, and did quite successfully, in part because of the global digitization, where everybody could find out what the Europeans were saying, they were able to convince political leaders in many developing countries that GMOs were unsafe and that they shouldn't be grown in those countries. And then they go out and essentially send missionaries to go and convince politicians and the public in the developing world that GMOs are dangerous. And they were successful. They've been very successful. Many developing countries that could really benefit enormously from GM methods have failed to do so. In India, GM cotton worked out very well. The so-called BT cotton has made a huge difference to cotton farmers in India. But for everything else, the government policy is currently to ban GMOs in India. In my view, this is a huge mistake. I think one has to stand up to the anti-GMO activists for the simple reason that there is just no evidence suggesting that GMOs are dangerous. In fact, if anything, the science would say that GMOs are probably safer than traditionally bred crops, not that they're more dangerous. After 30 years, there has been not one single credible example of a problem with GMOs. Indeed, even in Europe, they feed their animals with GMO crops. There are billions of tons of GM seeds, crops, plants that have been imported into Europe specifically to feed the animals. It's just people for whom apparently they're terribly dangerous. I think it's really pretty easy as a scientist to see through the real hypocrisy that has been taking place here. That the issue is not GMO foods, it's rather a question of who is controlling it. If you want to find examples of GM crops that have been good, just go to your neighboring country, Bangladesh, where they have been growing BT eggplant very successfully. In fact, it's been so successful, they can scarcely eat everything that they grow. I'm told that even some farmers in India, in Assam, have been growing BT eggplant, even though it's illegal, but they do so because the yields are better and it allows the poor farmers to make a living. I think in the long run, it is likely that farmers will be the people who really push through GM crops, because farmers are very smart people. They know if their neighbor has a plant that they grow that is more successful than theirs, the first thing they do is talk to their neighbor and get some of the seeds so they can grow it themselves. I want to finish this talk by really making the case for science. We all want a sustainable future. We all want a future in which there is more equity, in which people all over the world are treated as equally as is possible. Science is the key to this. I go back to COVID. COVID is a perfect demonstration of how science can help. We have a digital world. This also is due to science. It was the physicists at Bell Telephone Labs who made an awful lot of the digital world possible. It is a product of science. And we really can look at the GMO crops and see that here, food made by scientifically strong methods can really make a difference to feeding the world's population. This is all because of progress in science. We have to make sure that not only do we use science properly, but we must make sure that we educate our kids about it. In my experience, children are very much more open to science. They love it. They have a natural curiosity about the natural world. And by the time they are 8 or 10, if they've been educated properly, they are very pro-science. Many of them want to become scientists. We must make sure at school we teach science to our kids, that we don't knock it out of them. We give the opportunity to do experiments and to see how science has benefited the world. I gave a talk not too long ago at a local school for 12-year-olds. I was talking about GMOs and the Gmo method, and the kids were quite incredible in their responses. And they'd all been told by their teacher they had to write to me afterwards with some feedback about my talk. Many of them made a very interesting comment. They said this was the first time that they'd been spoken to as though they were adults. I think this is very telling. Many of our teachers do not educate kids as though they are adults. They treat them as kids. They pretend they don't know everything. But in fact, kids are pretty smart. But for me, the very best outcome was one young lady, little 12-year-old girl, who wrote and said she had gone home and talked to her parents about what I'd been saying. And her parents were very anti-GMO. But when she told them what I'd been telling them about GMOs, they changed their minds and they decided that, well, perhaps GMOs were okay after all. So again, sometimes educating the children, educating kids can make a huge difference. It can affect not just the kids, but it can affect their parents and their grandparents and their friends and their neighbors. And I think we should never forget that education is probably the real key to sustainability. And of course, when it comes to education, we don't just need to educate our kids. We need to educate our political leaders, and we need to educate the public. And we must make sure that our political leaders really understand the science, that they too are not just lawyers or politicians with no interest in science. We must make sure that our politicians also are well educated in science, that they are able to understand the facts of science and then act on them. And so I leave you with this thought: sustainability is key, but without science, it will never happen. And I thank you all very much for this opportunity to talk to you on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your so nice deliberation and so educating deliberations. I hope that all the people present here, they must have understood that how to connect science to the different field to maintain the sustainability in this globe. And science is the most important factor, most important subject that can make the sustainability happen in this globe. Thank you, sir, for your deliberation. I will request our honorable founder, Professor Dr. Achutananda Samant, to deliver his address.
So Honorable Dr. Richard John Roberts, our Honorable Chief Guest and inaugurator of this international conference. Also our Vice Chancellor, Pro Vice Chancellor, Registrar, and all the other respected speakers and guests and the participants on this international conference on sustainability and equity, digital society. So Honorable Dr. Richard, we are very much happy and honored that just after 4 years, we again got your presence, of course, virtually among our all the members present here. I hope the great Nobel laureate and the biochemist must have remembered his visit to these organizations. These are the two university, KIT University and also KISS University. We remember your visit and everything and also deliberations. We are very much really grateful to you for accepting our invitation to inaugurate and deliver the keynote address on this international conference on sustainability and also equity. I hope Professor Richard must be fine in spite of pandemic corona prevailing all over the world, also in your country, particularly in UK and also London. All of you must be fine. So also with us, though our corona was very high, but now at present it has declined, not only in India but also in Odisha state. It is declining very heavily and it is now very negligible in Odisha state. It may come off in the coming days as the second wave as it is in UK, Europe and also US. And our all the students, everybody are in their respective places. We have been doing for the last 7 months everything on online. And we are very much happy in spite of our pandemic corona situation. We have been doing our all the works. Just day before yesterday, we had a very good 16th convocation with the Professor Mohammad Yunus as the chief guest, virtual mode. And today, this is the inauguration of 3 days conference, international conference on sustainability and equity, digital society. And it's a very relevant theme, especially in the times of pandemic corona situation, where the solution lies in true sense, sustainability and also equity through digitalization. While equity means giving a fair chance to all, sustainability ensures that even the needs of the future generations are not ignored. These are pillars of developments, leaving no one behind. The answer to the problems of the world lies in sustainability with equity. We all know one without the other has no importance. When our society is moving towards digitalization, so much that we are no more Homo sapiens but Homo digital, these two sides of same coin cannot be ignored. Digitalization means change. while sustainability means continuing long term. To discuss how to harmonize these two, perhaps this international conference is being organized. And I will not take much time because I fully agree with the comments of our Vice Chancellor that how the sustainability and equity are truly experimented in two organizations, both KIT and KISS. The best examples in KIT and KISS. I hope all the participant speakers, those who are participating in this international conference, must be knowing our activities, how we value sustainability, and how we also maintain the equity with the help of these two great organizations, KIT University and particularly Kalinga Institute of Social Science, KISS University. I hope the deliberations today and also coming days, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we must be valuable. Thanks to ProVC for organizing with such a beautiful theme, sustainability and equity, digital society. So thank you very much, everybody participating on this international conference. On behalf of the staff, students, management of two university, KIT University, KISS University, and also as a founder of these organizations, it's my great pleasure to thank everyone participating in this international conference, particularly our special thanks with gratitude to Professor Richard for his kind consent to grace this occasion. Thank you very much.
Now I request Professor B.B. Das for concluding remarks. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Now it's audible, sir.
So good evening, everyone. Respected chief guest, most dignified scientist, Dr. Richard John Roberts, esteemed biochemist and Nobel laureate, honorable member of parliament, the pride of Odisha, and the most adorable person of KIT, Dr. Achyut Samantji, respected Professor Hrishikesh Mohanty, the Vice Chancellor of KIT University, the venerable and respected Dr. Sasmita Samanta, Pro Vice Chancellor of KIT, all esteemed office bearers of KIT University, dignitaries, delegates, authors, and participants of this conference. Well, I find sustainability is the key at this point of time. It is very well related to equity. We know equity is an essential component of sustainability that has been viewed as one of the three pillars of sustainability alongside environment and economy. Couple of months before, I think you must be remembering Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, spoke about self-reliant. The time has come for us to become self-reliant. Well, what is the meaning actually? The meaning I find each community must collaboratively examine its own circumstances, find its own rationale for including equity, and identify goals that best match its values. But remember, what can be the best match? Well, the best match, my dear friends, is the digitalization. Without its integration, fulfilling any goal at this point of time is going to be very much challenging. For example, you must be knowing even the software giants like Google, Microsoft, have committed, particularly a developing country like India, to provide free internet to each and every citizen of this country. So that is a great commitment towards digitalization. And we cannot achieve our goal without this kind of commitments. So with this small point of view, like I really would like to thank and congratulate KIT University and Institute of Eminence, particularly the Pro Vice Chancellor Madam Dr. Sasmita Samanta, who is the pioneer and was very much instrumental in having this conference with such a wonderful theme. Well, when she spoke about me, like about this conference on this theme, it was really wonderful to understand the meaning of theme penetrating the habitats, the each and every habitat of this universe. So with this, actually, I only helped in the taking this conference in getting associated with the Springer Nature Singapore. So, so few papers, or I would say the selected papers, the best quality papers, the best like innovative papers would be recommended to the Springer Nature Singapore. That is going to be published in a special edition of Business and Economics. So it is also my great privilege to propose the vote of thanks. I really, like from my bottom of my heart, I like to thank Dr. Richard John Robert for his esteemed presence here and delivering such an enlightening address. It was really great, sir. It is really happy to hear from you. Very much heartfelt thanks to the Honorable Member of Parliament and founder of KIT and KSS for his excellent presidential address, which is so much inspiring as always. Well, I would definitely suggest each one of us should visit at least once in a lifetime the great institution he has established, that is Kalinga Institute of Social Science. Thank you so much, sir. Special thanks to the Vice Chancellor of KIT University, Professor Rishikesh Mohanty, for his support and gracing this occasion. As always, thanks to the Pro Vice Chancellor, Madam Dr. Sasmita Samanta. Also, thanks to the organizing secretary, Dr. Jyotiranjan, for systematically doing all the work. Thanks to the Springer Nature Singapore editorial team for supporting the conference in agreeing to publish our conference papers in a special edition of Business and Economics. Thanks to all the organizing committee members for your kind support. Also to the keynote speakers, session chairs, delegates, authors, and the participants. Also, my heartfelt thanks I can see to the media for its extreme coverage. So with this, I wish you all a good time. Goodbye. Stay safe. Stay well. Thank you all.